Hiker Jay here. This week is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to share a project that we've been working on. So a buddy of mine, Riley, and I, we've gone in on this big old RV right here behind me, the Bob. We'll tell you the story behind that naming in a little while. So we did film when we first got it. We stayed overnight in winter just to see what it was like with like a little electric heater. And I'm going to show you some of that footage first where we were dreaming and scheming. And you can see its original structure the way it was. And then we're going to go inside and talk to Riley and my brother about how we plan to rebuild. It's already been tore up pretty big in there, so I'm going to take you in there and show you how it was tore up. I'll turn it over to Riley. He's been doing a lot of the tear out. But hopefully you'll enjoy this process of remodeling an old RV with us. So let's jump to a couple months ago when we first got it and we were dreaming and scheming, and then we'll go on inside.
So welcome to Big Bob, everybody. I've always been interested in the tiny home life, and so when this showed up on Facebook Marketplace for a really good price, it's a 1983 Chevy Squire motorhome, and so the guy had redone the inside, redone the roof,
yeah.
And so this is really the first test of tiny home life, staying off the grid every now and then, and just seeing how it works, how I like it.
And actually, if you all have ideas, because we're going to be doing this over like the next 4 or 5 months.
Yep, into summertime.
And we'll share all of it once we have it all done, but we're looking to kind of film it all as we go and put it out as a series.
Yep, so gonna hook up to solar power and run that, but for the heat, we need to replace that. New water heater needs to go in. That thing is ancient, from '83.
Scary. Yeah.
But the stove's in great shape, and some of the bones are really great. So
the chicken teriyaki is really good, but like the beef stew is my go-to.
Yeah.
I don't know why, I just love it, especially after like backpacking all day long. I like the beef stew. Just
I think when I went on that Iceland trip, it was the breakfast mix, and then chicken teriyaki, and then breakfast mix and chicken teriyaki. Just because I bought it in the big tins and I separated it out myself. Things we've talked about doing, and I want to know if you think I'm crazy, is putting in a mini wood stove, and so tinning and kind of bricking around it to have a heat shield against the walls and everything, but doing it in this area right behind us.
Right behind you, yeah. Yep. I'll put a shot in. Because this area could be gutted.
Yeah.
Like, the electrical's terrible down there. Like, it just needs to be redone.
There's a fridge in there that I'm not going to keep.
Yep.
Hopefully going to set up a system where I can pull one out of a cupboard and then
open the top chest. Yep. Exactly.
And so
those draw. There's so many that do it for, like, overlanding and that van life and that type of stuff, and they draw so little wattage.
Yep.
Like now, that you could run off of solar.
Yeah, so considering that, or a propane fridge, just however I can use the least amount of power and make sure solar is good in here. I'm just really excited to pull some things back, pull out some wiring, change all that around, fix the system and do a better setup, because right now some of that stuff in the fuse box is sitting in a cabinet area on the ground.
Yeah, I'll show you a shot of it. It's scary, sketchy.
Yeah, I want to mount all that in a safe place and make it more accessible. So things like that. You know, there's a long list to do,
right?
But we got a couple months to work through that.
All right, so now we're inside Bob here, and I'm sticking to the floor because we tore out some of the flooring. I want to introduce you to the crew, right? So here's Riley. You've seen him in some of my other videos, especially the Salida tent video in, Iceland, I think it was? Yep. Oh, yeah. And then my brother, you've seen his. Actually, that video's done really well. His converted shell type of just a shell work trailer. That video is like huge. Like people check that out all the time. So we got the band back together. So let's talk about what we've destroyed already inside.
All right, everybody. So you saw with the video staying overnight in winter that we had 2 booths here originally, and under this booth was the water tank where I'm standing, and under the other was the pump. It was a mess, man. You can kind of see in this insulated area down here that a critter got in. So pulled both of those booths out, and we're kind of looking at a couch setup now. So going L here across this section, and then actually this wide open area where I pulled out one of the cabinets that you would have seen on the back end of the booth. We're going to put a wood stove in for some dry heat in the winter, and then behind that kind of looking at a self-contained power system. But where I'm standing is an absolute mess right now. It was this stick-on floor and some of this stick-on tiling underneath. So we're kind of pulling as much back as we can, going to pull up as much floor as we can and re-insulate. But these pipes here are no longer running to tanks, and so that's where we think that the squirrel, mouse, or all of the above got in and came up right here because it was a really bad patch job on the tin. So gonna think about running new tanks here because there's only one in the back to have some gray water that we can dump out, but that requires pulling up the flooring, re-insulating, and going after all of that. So that's the plan for this section. Over here you can see the kitchen setup. We didn't show a lot of that in the last build, but I pulled out the sink. There's some old nasty 80s carpet back from probably 83 that's down there, and there are some mouse turds, and we might have to show a picture, but it's the old water heater. I'm not sure if this is the original stove or not. I think it is, but we want to get at as much of that as we can, replace some of the water lines, and probably going to leave this cabinet structure in place, so it just depends how much of the flooring and insulation we need to get to. But this cabinet is nice. They capped this on the outside so the stove fan isn't there, but I really like having that there. It has that cool vintage camper look. But back in here, the power system and the converter is just sitting on the floor. Really hate this setup, hate the way it looks. And so we're gonna pull all this out. I got a buddy who's an electrician.
Super scary.
Yeah. Got a buddy who's an electrician who's gonna help guide us through this as we set up the solar and put in a self-contained power system so that we can run a fridge. This guy before me replaced the lighting with LEDs, so that's good. But there's some other things power-wise that we're gonna have to consider. But hopefully a solar system will be the plan. And replace all this, mount it on a nice pull-out drawer, and then we'll have easy access to the electric, and then leave the cabinet right here for clothes. So then moving back here,
My bed.
yeah, where Jason slept during the winter excursion, I pulled out this bunk just because that's the heater access and some of the piping down here. And when I pulled out the ducts, there was mouse turds in there, which was great. And so you see that laying down in there. So we're gonna pull this out, put a new heater or furnace in. Haven't figured out exactly what we want yet, but thinking about a few smaller, easier to handle options. And don't trust this 83 model. Neither would anybody. And so gonna leave this bunk in place, and then I cut across here for this top bunk to make a shelf. And so this will open it up, and it'll kind of be a cool nook to hang out.
Oh, it's really nice because it's a bugger getting in there when it's already, you know, that short.
At this height, for a guy like Hiker Jay trying to hop in there and lay down, there's not much room. So open this up, have some storage up here still, and then I'm going to move over here. This cabinet is a nice pantry space. I quite honestly want to leave it for right now. I don't really see any need in replacing it. Maybe repainting, but
Repainting, set up the shelf shelves a little bit.
yeah, we could move them up. And what we're thinking is pulling this drawer out, move my tool belt, and then this is just an access. There's a wheel well down there, so that elevates everything. But talked about putting a chest freezer that pulls out in here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
One that could actually just be on runners, and you pull it out and then put it right back in, the top opening type.
Yeah, so to be above the piping coming from the sink, we'd have to be about here, so we'd have to go into the pantry space and reconfigure that a little bit, but I don't think that's a huge issue. I think that would be a really nice system, and then that moves it over here. The fridge was originally behind me.
I think it's a really good move because the original fridge was like a dorm room fridge that was sitting right here. So having one that can like be hidden underneath a cabinet, I think is brilliant when you have such little space going on to begin with.
Yeah, well, in the system over here, it's kind of a mess, and I don't know how detailed we want to get, but the electrical is running through here. There's your battery bank. I didn't really talk about that, but this box is all corroded, and that's where I think some of the leak is coming from. So we're going to bump that out. Obviously, that system we talked about is going to move in here, and then the water pump was just sitting down here right next to some wiring, and here's the gas line, the propane line, which we don't need this one for the fridge anymore over here. So going to pull that out, clean some of the wiring, and move it. Obviously, that battery box will bump, and then that'll separate some of the water and the electrical more than it was before, which sketched me out. So some of this old wiring may have to go too. But other than that, we got the bathroom in the back. Are we going in?
Yeah, bathroom's pretty sound actually.
Yeah. I'll hop in the
Shower
tub here so that we have room. It's actually a pretty big space back in here. Right now, no sense in replacing this toilet. Talked about a composting toilet, but with the tank here and the availability of dumping, I think I'm going to leave it. The shower shell.
Yeah, we'll probably have to pull that and just reseal it all. I think is what is going to need to happen.
Yeah, and it needs some updated
Fixtures?
updated fixtures right here. This is, but it looks cool in here. I mean, it was well designed.
Yeah.
You know, the sink space is nice.
And it kind of has a cool retro look, which is pretty nice to keep with that kind of like old RV style too. We don't want to really make it all so modern that it doesn't, you know, fit the outside.
Exactly, and I like what they did here. Windows seem to be in good shape. Cabinets are in good shape, and so pulling this out will definitely be a good idea. That'll, you know, give us access to some of the piping and then allow us to see if there's any leaks. But from what I can tell, I'm not finding anything. So it's a mess up here right now, but this is the bunk area where I will be sleeping, and it goes pretty deep. It's nice, it's comfortable. I slept here during the winter camp. It was warm. Jason in the back lost all the heat and it came up. So this is a good setup in terms of the winter. We'll see how summer goes.
So that kind of wraps up this month, and a couple questions you might have. What do we plan to do with it? So definitely some long weekend excursions, but we're going to probably put it out at my property, and then Riley will stay in an extended time. He really wants to get into kind of trying out that kind of van life style. Ultimately, he wants to build his own place, and he's got a plan for that, but this will give him an option to actually try it out for a while. We'll have a nice remodeled RV. So we're hoping in a month from now we'll have a lot more to show you on the construction side of things, and I'll probably take you out to the property where we're thinking we're going to park it. We're going to bring in some gravel and have a nice pad for it, and kind of a nice place to actually go and hang out and camp out on the property, but be able to drive it out easily and take it on an adventure as well. So till next time, just remember, life's a hike, so hike happy. Get yourself a big old RV. It's a great little project. We'll check in on this again in about a month. Take care.